So when I went outside, I couldn't even go to the polling station because it was already all over. People are running, running, running. And you hear guns, and it was sudden like that. So I may agree that there were some coordination before this event.
Na kitendea kazi chao ndo wakachagua hao jinsi vijana, lakini nyuma yake ni wanaharakati, kwa sababu hata huyo Maria Sarungi na mwingine hata Mangi Kimambi wote walikuwa pamoja, wanajiita wanaharakati wanatetea haki ya wao wenyewe, labda tunaita wenyewe wakachagua na ya vijana. Kwa hiyo hicho ndio chombo ambacho kimetumika, na hao yani wanaharakati ndio waratibu, na walichagua engo ya kutumia ni engo ya kisiasa, na hata kama kuna wafadhili walienda kwenye engo hizo.
So basically, I'm trying to find out from the point of view of a Tanzanian who lived through this, who maybe saw this happen, who knows people who took part in this protest. What was the atmosphere like in the lead up to the election? And when exactly did this begin? And when did you start noticing that something is really happening here, something very unprecedented is happening here? And why do you feel like people wanted to join this thing?
Yes. And there are very difficult questions to respond to, but let me try.
Baba, gari za TAKUKURU hizo. Gari za TAKUKURU. Wasije kudharau chuki hao. Gari za TAKUKURU hizo. Baba, gari za TAKUKURU hizo.
Habari za wakati huu wa Tanzania. Kwa majina naitwa Captain Tesha.
On October 29, 2025, the country known as the Soul of Africa went up in flames. Tanzania, one of the most consequential countries on the African continent, bordered by 8 different countries, went to the polls, and the aftermath was a post-election violence disaster. Or at least that's what we were told. Within hours of the general election, the news headlines and social media feeds were filled with news about an uprising and a brutal government crackdown. Social media posts like this one began doing the rounds, alongside rumors about huge death tolls and mass graves. Within a few days, continental figures jumped in, and there was talk of an ICC criminal warrant. CNN even did a documentary on the crisis. The BBC followed suit shortly afterwards. Even after the smoke cleared and President Samia Suluhu Hassan was sworn in for a second term, her victory was marred by accusations of violence and brutality. It was a crisis that seemingly defined her administration. But what if this story you just heard wasn't just incomplete? What if it was a total fabrication? What if almost everything you have heard about what happened in Tanzania was not only false, but designed to hide something much deeper and much uglier? To understand what really happened, I traveled to Dar es Salaam to hear the raw story in person, stripped of any Western media coverage with its satellite imagery, social media's loud echo chamber, and the many stiffly worded diplomatic statements over the past 4 months that have said a lot without saying much of anything. As a journalist, a good place to start was with my colleagues who were in the local newsrooms and on the ground when the chaos began. One of these people is Deodatus Balile, chair of the Tanzania Editors Forum, who was among the first to notice that something strange was happening on the morning of October 29. His version of the story sounded nothing like what I had heard over the past 4 months.
It started like a joke. Actually, me inclusive, that no one believed it could erupt violence. Be it the state organs, individuals, we were all saying that these are jokes on the social media, but they are just teasing themselves, and no one took it serious. because we have never ever experienced the post-election violence. What encouraged the people to go to the streets? I would say the social media. The social media was the main catalyst. No organization like find people seated here. They were doing it online. 2 days before is when one of the guys came and told me, yes, you are the chairperson of Tanzania Forum, but something big is coming, and they can see most editors you are not aware. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you are capable, make sure you buy enough food, make sure you buy enough water, enough electricity, everything. Stock your, pile up your stock, because this country won't be moving for the next 2 months. I took it lightly, but when I came home, my wife told me the same. Then we rushed into the store. We stopped almost everything. We bought electricity, which will last for 3 months. So, when we went to vote, I went to vote that day on 29th. We voted well. In the morning, it was so cool. There was no violence, no whatsoever. Some photos started to float around from Ubungo around 10, 11 a.m. And we said maybe they are AI generated. That was our initial thinking. So people kept moving around, going here and there. So when we came to realize that petrol stations are torched, cars are burnt, people who had voted, actually there's something which is not mentioned, the protesters were chopping off this small finger if they found you with the ink that you have voted. So a number of people were highly humiliated by being chopped off their fingers. Then it's when we say, we think can be serious. So by 15 hours, the situation was a bit worse. Then it calmed. And now we were kind of calling each other, hey guy, what is happening here? What is happening there? But there was no outright answer. Everyone was puzzled. We were not sure if it has really happened. These photos were AI generated, but the state organs, they are almost everywhere. Slowly, we saw the internet starting to fade. It's when we say, this thing can be serious. And we started calling some polling station. Returning officers now started telling us, oh, I'm on run. Why? My polling station has been touched. The government office has been burnt. Then the state of panic took place. Almost everyone was puzzled. We didn't know what to do. People had no groceries at their homes. Actually, we are not prepared. No.
So this was on election day.
On election day.
So polling stations and government stations were getting burned on election day.
On the election day.
Before results were announced.
There was nothing.
I'd heard something important in Mr. Balile's testimony. Something that was entirely missing from all the popular media coverage I had seen about this event. So I had to double check that what he said was what I heard.
I'm going to bring you back a bit because it's very important for the sake of whoever's going to be watching this. The international audience has been given the idea that what happened was that there was a poorly conducted or a fraudulent election, and then whatever violence happened as a response to the results that some people did not like. What you are saying is, before there was ever any results, before any sort of indication as to the outcome of the election ever came, that this violence had already started.
Brother, the voting started at 7. The violence erupted at 10 in the morning. And the counting had to start after 16 hours. So even the process of voting had not been completed. That's the difference. And when I look at this international community media, you find them saying, oh, they protested the results. No. There was no any result protested because the process of voting was under the way. We started voting at 7 and the violence erupted at 10. So you can imagine. The voting had to conclude at 16 hours. So we are not even halfway of voting. So if that narrative that they protested the results, then it's something new, and maybe it's something else apart from the results we know.
To properly understand the characters and issues involved in this story, we have to go back to 1992. That was the year that Tanzania transitioned from Julius Nyerere's one-party state into a multi-party electoral system under President Ali Hassan Mwinyi, who had succeeded Nyerere in 1985. President Mwinyi and Nyerere both came from the political movement known as Chama cha Mapinduzi, or CCM for short. CCM was built around Nyerere's Ujamaa philosophy, which some have described as socialism with Tanzanian characteristics. Since Tanzania would no longer be a one-party state, it needed opposition parties. The biggest of these opposition parties that emerged between the 90s and 2000s is what is known today as Chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, or Chadema for short. As documented by researcher Dan Paget, the political infrastructure of what became Chadema was almost single-handedly built by Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, or KAS, which is the think tank of Germany's Christian Democratic Union. The CDU, you might recall, is the party of Angela Merkel, a classic center-right neoliberal political party that championed brutal austerity across southern Europe following the great financial crisis. That is an important piece of context because it is central to understanding what Chadema is and why Tanzanian politics has now become so dangerously polarized. According to Chadema itself, its goal isn't simply to offer an electoral alternative to CCM, but to integrate Tanzania into the global social market economy. In other words, the Tanzanian political space is a binary tussle between a traditional ruling party that effectively built the entire country along socialist ideals and an imported slash-and-burn capitalist opposition party that is, to all intents and purposes, a completely artificial Western creation that was literally inserted into Tanzania's political space by a foreign government. Unsurprisingly, both parties can never agree on anything, because while CCM's stated ideology is the development of Tanzania using a socialist model that prioritizes national sovereignty and self-reliance, Chadema's stated end goal is the complete opposite: the imposition of a Western-style laissez-faire governance model on Tanzania, which would loosen the grip of the state over the Tanzanian economy, and thus prime Tanzania for what some would term investment and others would term extraction. Another important bit of context to have about Tanzanian politics is that the last time neoliberal capitalism got a hold of Tanzania via IMF and World Bank imposed structural adjustment programs in the 1980s and 90s, the results caused vast amounts of human suffering and physically stunted an entire generation. By 1991, at the height of these reforms, 50% of Tanzanian children suffered stunted growth or physical shrinkage due to malnutrition. Education spending collapsed from 20% of the state budget to under 5%, and thousands of kids had to drop out of school to work. These are important pieces of context for this story because they explain why, as we'll examine shortly, Western donor money is fundamental and intrinsic to Tanzania's opposition. They also explain why certain figures within Tanzania's political opposition seem to engage in a way that appears completely out of character for this famously even-tempered corner of East Africa.
They were guided by two people. I don't know how I should describe them. They are activists indeed. One is living in the US, and the other is living in Kenya. Maria Salum is living in Kenya, and Mange Kimambi is living in the USA. So they were calling them to go to the streets, and you ask them what do they aim at. They say they want the president top body. Actually, I can say the online authority from these two ladies plus 3 or 5 others, Kimambi and the Sarungi Maria. Actually, they were the big force that orchestrated the process.
Maria Sarungi Sehai is a key figure in Tanzania's opposition. Born to Philemon Sarungi, a serial cabinet minister and high-ranking Nyerere loyalist, and his Hungarian wife, Maria was raised in the exclusive Oyster Bay district of Dar es Salaam, which was one of the few places in Tanzania that was insulated from the IMF's painful neoliberal austerity. Mange Kimambi is the Los Angeles-based daughter of a successful entrepreneur in Tanzania's construction industry and the stepdaughter of a former Director General of Tanzania's National Institute for Medical Research. Having grown up in a luxury residence at the Mbezi Beach suburb of Dar es Salaam before later moving to the US, she, like Maria Sarungi, took no part in the national pain of Tanzania's SAP era. She attained prominence by becoming one of the country's best-known gossip bloggers and social media influencers in the 2010s, essentially Tanzania's answer to Perez Hilton or Linda Ikeji. This unlikely duo of establishment rich kid turned political opposition figure and rich kid turned gossip blogger come influencer will turn into an unexpectedly potent tag team of online political influencers who had the ears of Tanzania's Gen Z population ahead of the elections. But only those who were steeped in Tanzanian Gen Z culture saw it coming. For those whose primary constituency was offline, the extent to which these online influencers had offline influence would come as a real surprise.
On the ground, the Chadema party leaders were a kind of supporting, but unfortunately, there was no anything on the ground. Everything was conducted online. If you are not connected to their groups, they were arranging anything.
Right.
The generation of ours who are 50 and above, a kind of we are telling people, you guys, you are joking. But those who were online could tell a week before that the situation is pathetic. But you could ask, for me, on the 30th, my second born was there somewhere at Gongoramboto. So when they burnt the offices where they were calling, they ran to the next house. It was burnt. They ran to the other one. And he called me that here we are, but the office has been burnt. We went to the safe house. It has also been burnt. It has been also burnt, and now we have ran to the third house. I could not sleep. I said, okay. I told my wife that if God does not guard the house, those who guards it, they are wasting their time. So I said, if it's time for me to die, I better die in the field than in the morning asking my son, did you survive? So I took that very car, drove from my home, I passed by Banana, I went to Gongoramboto. The street was fortified. I can tell you, the security was so high, but I was expressing myself and saying, okay, I'm following my son, telling them that story which I have narrated. They said, okay, let's escort you at a certain point. When we reached Gongoramboto, we found the road was not navigable. We could not pass because they had collected all the paving blocks, woods, torn tires, and placed them on the road. So the police officer said, okay, let's find another alternative way so that we can reach Gongoramboto where he was. They know the routes. So we had to go off the main road, pass through other minor roads. We reached there by 1:30 a.m. So I found him with the 13 others. We boarded them, others boarded in the police car. We took them to Tabata, and then I was escorted back to Kitunda with my son. What he experienced at this age of 54, I have never seen before. And I don't pray to see it again, because the road was deserted, with full of stones, pavings, woods, tires, burning. It was pathetic.
Now we have established the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how of what happened, which leaves us with the most important question. Why? Why did an entire country come to the brink of disaster? Why did two ladies who grew up in the lap of Tanzanian state-sponsored luxury become the online spearheads of an information campaign that created these unprecedented outcomes? And since we have established that the violence was premeditated and had nothing to do with the results of the election, why did it happen and what was behind it? And why did the Tanzanian public go along with any of this? To understand why October 29 happened, we have to start from October 29. the one that happened 30 years ago in 1995. During that Tanzanian presidential election, CCM candidate Benjamin Mkapa won with a 62% majority. 5 years later, on October 29, 2000, Mkapa's CCM won again, this time with a 72% majority. On November 14, 2005, CCM candidate Jakaya Kikwete won that election with an 80% landslide. On October 31, 2010, he won a second term with a 63% majority. On October 25, 2015, CCM's John Magufuli won a 58% majority, followed by a thumping 84% landslide in 2020 against a certain Tundu Lissu. More on him later. Point being, CCM has never really been in danger of losing an election in Tanzania, and Chadema was nailed on for another defeat on October 29. For Chadema's neoliberal backers, this was more than just a disappointment, because with Tanzania forecasted to overtake Kenya as East Africa's largest economy sometime between 2028 and 2033, it would mean that not only did the neoliberal project completely fail to take roots in this strategically important African country, but that an economy that is still organized around many of Nyerere's Ujamaa ideas, including state ownership of land and significant central planning, has become the most successful economy in East Africa. Which breaks the entire wealth creation thesis at the heart of neoliberal capitalism strategy for winning African hearts and minds. So what do you do if you're in charge of an opposition that frankly sucks at winning elections because it has not communicated any real ideas to the electorate since it was parachuted wholly in by a foreign government and is heading for another certain loss under the same candidate that took an 84% to 13% shellacking the last time out? A time-tested political tactic for coming out of such a situation on top is to light a metaphorical Reichstag fire and make yourself a persecuted victim of the incumbency. In doing so, you take advantage of the human desire for justice and the natural preference for a David over a Goliath to build a political following out of a completely self-inflicted grievance. This is precisely what Chadema did in 2025.
You see, things piled up. Tanzania was in the process of writing a new constitution. And that process started in 2011. Come 2015, it is stalled. And the then elected president, John Pombe Magufuli, decided not to engage with the constitution process. He said he did not promise constitution when he was contesting the presidential elections. But now when he died in 2021, slowly, some people started demanding the new constitution. And in the process of demanding the new constitution, the current sitting president said, okay, Tanzania will write a new constitution, but it is a process. And this process cannot be abrupt. 2025, January, the main opposition party, Chadema, had the elections. The chairperson for Chadema was Freeman Imbowe, and the vice president was Tundu Lissu. Tundu Lissu had picked the form to vie for vice presidents of the party, but we withdrew that form after filling it, and they contested the chairmanship of the party with the slogan that no, the chairperson of Chadema was a bit weak, was not confrontational enough. So he thought that because of chauvinism, if I'm not mistaken, that could manhand the current president since she is a woman. And surprisingly, he won in the party, in Chadema. In the party elections, he won. And he started calling for violence. Actually, he started demanding within that shortest time of period. You know, writing a constitution is a process. There is no way you can write a constitution in 6 months. So he demanded in 5 months' time that the then parliament had the powers, he's a lawyer by profession, that the parliament had the powers to enact a new constitution without even involving people by June 2025. Then the government said, what are we rushing? What are we in a hurry of? We say the constitution will be written, but the process has to involve all Tanzanians. So that Tundu Lissu now, the chair of Chadema, said if no constitutional amendment, no elections. That was the first statement. And then that statement grew into no reforms, no elections. Some people, like I said before, we thought it was a joke. So that slogan grew: no reform, no elections, no reform, no elections. Come August 2025, the party had to sign the ethics code for the elections. Chadema did not sign the code for elections. And the elections law is categorically clear. If you don't sign the elections code, automatically you cannot participate in the elections. So they declined signing the election codes. And the narrative out there, which is being told, is that they were prohibited to participate in the elections. But voluntarily, they declined signing the elections code. Yes, but now they declined voluntarily not sign that elections code. And by not signing it, automatically, you cannot participate in the elections. So they did not field candidates. Right. And they are preparing to field the candidates after they were given time until a day before nomination, that they had the opportunity to sign the code and participate in the elections. They declined signing the code. And they said they won't sign the code and did not sign the code. So they kept now pushing this agenda of no reform, no election, no reform, no elections. And the Independent National Electoral Commission nominated the candidates. Now the chairperson for Chadema said, okay, even if the INEC has nominated the candidates, but the elections want to be held. Everyone was a bit surprised. How will you manage to stop the elections while you are not participating, and you have got no state machinery, you have got no army or insurgents? How do you stop the elections? Okay, that slogan continued: no reform, no election, no reform, no elections. It started to shape in the last month of the campaign. That is October. It's when now they started calling people to demonstrate, to fill the polling stations, to make sure that people cannot access voting process or what. Then the government said, okay, that will be criminal. If you don't want to participate in the elections, it's your own choice. And no one forces you to participate in the elections. But now, if you don't want to participate, do not block others who intend or want to participate in the elections. They said they won't participate in the elections.
This Reichstag fire strategy worked brilliantly because once Tundu Lissu was arrested and charged with treason in April 2025, he went from being the guy who scored 13% of the vote in 2020 and was nailed on to lose again in 2025 to becoming the focus of a flurry of civil society and international media attention, drawing in all the usual suspects from electoral conflict entrepreneurs like Jeffrey Smith and his Vanguard Africa political PR consultancy, to East African celebrity activists like Boniface Mwangi and Agatha Atuhire.
These two activists from Kenya and Uganda respectively created a media firestorm when they attempted to attend Tundu Lissu's trial hearing in May 2025, only to be detained and deported by the Tanzanian authorities. In a subsequent press conference in Nairobi, they claimed that Tanzanian security forces tortured and sexually assaulted them.
Dude. Okay. Oh. Dude, what objects in my...
I arranged to meet up with a group of 4 eyewitnesses to see how their accounts of events matched up with Deodatus Balile's timeline. Like him, they described going out to vote on October 29 and almost immediately encountering coordinated groups of young people who were systematically targeting polling stations and government buildings. According to them, it was immediately clear to them that these were not the randomized actions of a population reacting to something, but the work of an organized force aiming to delegitimize the state.
My surprise is, how did it happen? Because myself, at my home, there was a polling station just nearby. And I was actually preparing to go there. And it was like 10 to 11 a.m. You see, people had already started voting. You see, and also I had a journey to somewhere. I was from Mabibo, I wanted to go to Karo. And then when time arrives, when I was about to go out, I decided to call my friend. Hey, I want now to leave home. I'm going to the polling station, then I will come there. Then he said, my friend, where are you? I'm at Mabibo. It's everywhere things have turned upside down. I don't think if you will make it. You see? So when I went outside, I couldn't even go to the polling station because it was already all over. People are running. And you hear guns, and it was sudden like that. Okay? So I may agree that there were some coordination before this event.
October tunatoka. There are some sentences like that. October tunatoka, and others say that October tunatiki. There are people also say that no reform, no election. So maneno kama hayo yakafikia hatua mbaya siku ya uchaguzi, yakafanya yani matokeo mabaya sana siku yenyewe ya uchaguzi. Watu wakaumia, hivyo Gen Z wakafanya fujo. Hivyo kwa hizi ni vitu ambavyo vilitengenezwa, vilikoordinatiwa toka awali. Kwa watu ambao vijana wengi tunafahamu tuko kwenye mitandao ya kijamii, na ile mitandao ya kijamii wapo watu ambao ni ma-influencer. Wakisema kitu unakuta kijana ameshakichukua na amekichukua kama kilivyo, na hususan vijana wengi wanaenda na upepo, yani wanapelekwa tu kama hivi kama bendera. Kwa hiyo unakuta kama Maria Sarungi, even Mange Kimambi walikuwa wana influence vitu kama hivyo. No reform, no election. No reform, no election. Hatutoke Oktoba, yani hivyo. Kwa zikawa changamoto nyingi sana, zikapelekea mambo mabaya siku ya uchaguzi. Kwa hiyo social media zilichangia sana kuleta vurugu katika nchi yetu, kwa sababu mimi nafikiri tangu nimepata akili zangu timamu nimeshuhudia chaguzi karibia 2 hivi ama 3. Sijawahi kuona chaguzi kama hii ambayo imeipata misukosuko mingi. Yani naona kuna vitu vingi ambavyo viliandaliwa ili chaguzi isiwepo, lakini tu Mungu akajalia tukapata uchaguzi Tanzania, tukafanya japo kwa tabu sana, lakini uchaguzi ulifanyika na ukaisha. Hivyo kwa hiyo influencers ndio waliharibu uchaguzi. Influencers wanaweza wakaitwa kama wachochezi, sio niseme wachochezi, ndio waliochangia sana kuharibu vijana mindset, mpaka vijana wale ndio kafikia hatua ile ya kutaka kuharibu uchaguzi.
Kwamba mimi ukiniuliza chanzo ni nini, mimi nitakujibu kwamba chanzo ni wanaharakati. Sasa wanaharakati wale walichagua engo ya kuitumia, wakachagua engo ya uchaguzi, ya demokrasia, na kitendea kazi chao ndo wakachagua hao jezi vijana. Lakini nyuma yake ni wanaharakati, kwa sababu hata huyo Maria Sarungi na mwingine hata Mange Kimambi wote walikuwa pamoja wanajiita wanaharakati. Wanatetea haki ya wao wenyewe, labda tunaita wenyewe wakachagua na ya vijana. Kwa hiyo hicho ndio chombo ambacho kimetumika, na hao yani wanaharakati ndio waratibu, na walichagua engo ya kutumia ni engo ya kisiasa. Na hata kama kuna wafadhili walienda kwenye engo hizo. Kwa hiyo kweli shida sio kama inavyosemekana kwamba ilifanyika vile kwa ajili ya matokeo ya uchaguzi. Hapana, wanaharakati wao walisema walikuwa na plani zao mbili, kwamba wanazuia uchaguzi. Kama watashindwa kuzuia uchaguzi, watavuruga uchaguzi. Kwa hiyo lengo ya kuzuia ilikuwa ngumu kwao, kwa sababu hawana network, yani hawana muunganiko wa hilo jambo pawa kufanya. Kwa hiyo lengo waloichagua nyingine ni kuvuruga. Kwa hiyo kuvuruga uchaguzi, wamevuruga kabla uchaguzi wenyewe hujaisha.
Political movements need money. Even popular political movements need money. Artificial, helicoptered-in political formations like Tanzania's German-made opposition need money even more so. And in the months leading up to the disrupted election, key opposition figures in the country received sizable cash grants from NGOs with deep documented ties to Western foreign intelligence and capital networks. For example, Maria Sarungi's NGO, Mwanzo.org, which supposedly exists to provide support to underprivileged communities in areas like health, agriculture, education, and entrepreneurship, received a $600,000 Ford Foundation grant on September 1, 2025, less than 2 months to the election, supposedly for the purpose of strengthening the protection mechanism for LGBTQ community and democracy in Tanzania. Bear in mind, this was separate from 2 other existing and ongoing Ford Foundation grants to the same organization in the sum of $400,000 each. A few days after the election in December 2025, a leaked letter from the Ford Foundation to Maria Sarungi then made reference to a further $2.3 million payment for an unspecified purpose. This letter is a smoking gun, because here is where we see the actual power behind Maria Sarungi directly instruct her to, quote, ensure that each interview participant presents a clear, consistent, and distinct narrative highlighting specific allegations concerning the government of Tanzania. In other words, this is prima facie evidence of direct US political interference in Tanzania using a local sock puppet who is on their payroll. It is important to note that the Ford Foundation is famous for acting as a front organization for the US Central Intelligence Agency, a role it has played since the 1960s at the peak of the Cold War. British journalist and historian Frances Stoner Saunders has documented a key role played by the Ford Foundation in the CIA strategy of plausible deniability when funding foreign subversive movements and propaganda campaigns across Eastern Europe, Africa, and the Global South. So 2 months before Tanzania's election, the Ford Foundation, a supposedly non-partisan arts and culture non-profit, which is known to act as a US secret intelligence front, was directly funneling cash to an organization that was directly linked to Tanzania's opposition. If this blatant interference was not enough, the Ford Foundation is also a funder of at least one of the Kenyan celebrity activists who suddenly took it upon themselves to travel to Tanzania to attend Tundu Lissu's trial hearing. Boniface Mwangi's Power 254 NGO received a $200,000 grant from the Ford Foundation in March 2025. 2 months later, shortly after lodging at a 5-star hotel in Dar es Salaam, while attempting to attend Tundu Lissu's trial hearing, he did this. This is what has now become a standard Western playbook for destabilizing African countries, blackmailing African governments, or carrying out regime change operations on the continent without firing a bullet. First, the civil society and activists are generously funded. Then the political actors are briefed to act in such a manner that forces the government to take certain action. When that action is taken, a well-choreographed kabuki dance immediately ensues, bringing together the civic actors, the media, the beleaguered government, and the diplomatic arms of the foreign actors that created the entire drama. In this case, Chadema, a party that was built by foreign capital to promote capitalism in a country where foreigners are not even allowed to directly own land, was never realistically going to have a shot at winning the presidency because it fundamentally had no message for the Tanzanian people. Tundu Lissu's threat to violently scupper the national election if the entire constitution wasn't rewritten to his liking in 5 months without public participation was a deliberate strategic provocation of the state, and it worked. Once he got locked up and put on trial for treason, the media, civil society, and diplomatic community kabuki theater began. Thanks to the deep pockets of the Ford Foundation, a well-documented CIA front organization, Maria Sarungi and her associates were able to call in the Continental Cavalry from as far afield as Nigeria, having sold the issue to an enraptured local and international audience as a fight for democratic freedom. Overnight, Tundu Lissu had gone from the guy who barely managed 13% of the vote against John Magufuli to a martyr and a hero of Tanzanian democracy. No one remembered that the reforms in No Reforms, No Election primarily centered around restructuring Tanzania's economy and state in line with full-send neoliberal capitalism. And more importantly, nobody cared. The only optics amplified by this Western capital machine were that Chadema was now a brave resistance movement standing firmly against the oppressive, authoritarian habits of a political party that had held power since it was an African independence movement. Tundu Lissu had turned into Malcolm X, and President Hassan was always fighting a losing narrative battle. Using this playbook, the violence of October 29 would not just be expected, but actively courted and desired, because it would be the only way for a political party without a base, built on external ideology and operating using external funding, to ever become a serious contender. And then came the Western media to play its role in this mass gaslighting event. When Western media jumped on the October 29 crisis, it wasn't to investigate or make any attempt at telling a complete story. They came to fill in the blanks with Tanzanian tears and B-roll footage and illustrate a pre-written story. CNN ran a documentary alleging mass graves, using satellite imagery to zoom in on Kondo Cemetery. But our primary source visuals tell a completely different story. It's just a quiet, regular graveyard. I walked around it for close to an hour, looking for the telltale signs of a mass grave. Nothing. Not even an interesting nothing, just nothing.
We have the cemetery called Kwakondo. In Dar es Salaam is the only active cemetery. And on daily basis at that cemetery, there are about 15 to 25 burials. Dar es Salaam is residence of about 7 million people. Imagine they are all almost laying their beloved ones along Kondo. So you should not wonder if you find a disturbed land at Kondo. Because even if you go today, you will find people from morning to the evening, the burial process is going on. So if someone says there was disturbed land, you say, okay, this is a stranger in Dar es Salaam. If you look at the UN Commission for Human Rights, to date, they say 10 people died in the violence in Tanzania. The report which is on their website.
Credible reports we have received indicate that at least 10 people were killed in Dar es Salaam, Shinyanga, and Morogoro as the security forces used firearms and tear gas to disperse protesters.
Even today, it says 10 people died in Tanzania. But listen to Al Jazeera, they say 700. Go to the social media, some are saying 2,000, some 10,000, some 12,000. You know, rather, we are living along this area, in the seat of Dar es Salaam. If death is to that tune occur, mourning would be almost in each and every house. The youths who we are demonstrating are the girls and the boys we are living along in the neighborhoods. We are seeing them today. I'm not disputing that there is no death that occurred. Death is happened, but not to that magnitude. Because the commission, the inquiry commission which has been formed, told the people to go before the commission and tell if you lost your relative, if someone has gone missing. At ask in Dar es Salaam, I'm not sure. We have seen up to 50 people going to the commission. Now the narrative is being changed that people are in fear of going before the commission because it can boomerang. The commission is a free organization. It's a constitutional organization. They reach a point of even holding closed session if you think you are not safe. But no one is showing that. But now the new narrative is people are in fear of reprisals if they go to the commission. You lost your relative and you are fearing reprisals.
Kuna jambo ambalo mimi niseme kwamba kwenye ile harakati inawezekana watu wakawa wamefariki kweli, na inawezekana watu wakawa wameumia, lakini kila mtu atayesema asemi kwa namba. Yani hata ukisikia mtu anasema maelfu kwa maelfu akutajie, yani hana majibu. Kwa hiyo na serikali na wao wamesema kwamba wanakiri wakati mwingine kwamba vifo vimetokea, lakini shida inakuja ni hapa kwa wingi, kwa sababu jambo la kwanza imeonekana kweli watu walifariki, halina ubishi, lakini hakuna ukweli wowote kwamba watu wengi walifariki. Watu kweli walifariki sehemu kama ile, lazima watu walifariki, lakini kwa hili jambo la kusema wengi, basi tungeona na wao wengi wakidai labda wanatishika au wametishiwa. Hapana, na watu wanaodai kwamba wengi walifariki ni wale wale ambao walikuwa wanasema tutakinukisha tutoke, na wao ndo bado wanasema wengi walifariki. Sasa sijajua kama wao wenyewe ndo waliwaua ama vipi, hilo sijakuwa na uhakika nalo, lakini kiufupi kwa sisi wenyewe wa Tanzania, kwa sababu hao waliofariki maana yake tunakaa nao mtaani, hao waliofariki tunakaa nao kwenye kijiji, hao waliofariki tunakaa nao kwenye maisha haya, kwamba mimi leo nakaa Mbagala, kama wengi Mbagala walifariki, maana yake ningeona watu wengi ndugu zao wamepotea na misiba ingekuwa ipo mingi katika mitaa, lakini hiyo haionyeshi. Kwa hiyo kama haionyeshi, usahihi wa kusema watu wengi walifariki unakuwa haupo, kwa sababu tungekuta majumbani au mitaani wengi wenye huzuni na wengi wanatafuta ndugu zao. Lakini kwa wachache sawa, tunaona hiyo misiba ipo, na kwenye jambo kama lile, kwenye vurugu kama zile, misiba haiwezi kukosa kutokea, lakini tunasema sio hivyo ambavyo wao wanasema wengi. Pamoja kwenye kifo hata wakianza wawili watakuwa wengi, lakini sio wingi wanaomaanisha wanaharakati wetu.
How did they get it so wrong? The answer lies in the bylines, or lack thereof. Both CNN and the Daily Nation's investigations were effectively outsourced to an open source investigator named Benjamin Strick. And you see, the thing about Benjamin Strick is that in addition to being an open source intelligence specialist, he happens to work for a shadowy NGO called the Center for Information Resilience. The Center for Information Resilience is a London-based organization whose stated goal is to counter disinformation, expose human rights abuses, and combat online behavior harmful to women and minorities, which sounds nice and benign. However, it was founded by Adam Rutland and Ross Burley, both former long-time employees of the UK Foreign Office, and it has received basically all of its funding from Western government sources, primarily the UK Foreign Office and the now defunct USAID. Its advisory board is a who's who list of prominent Western intelligence operatives, including Semiotis, a former CIA analyst, Nina Jankowicz, a former Department of Homeland Security senior staff member, and Thomas Hendrik Ilves, Estonia's former president and foreign minister who led the country's accession into NATO. In other words, the Center for Information Resilience is a joint Western intelligence operation targeting the information space. What you are looking at is a non-governmental organization that receives all of its funding from governmental sources and is actively engaged in an ongoing British-led foreign information, manipulation, and interference operation targeting Africa. The goal of such operations is to further the economic and political interests of their backers, not to do journalism or tell the truth. To put it bluntly, Benjamin Strick is not a credible participant in any kind of journalistic endeavor because the organization he works for exists to wage information warfare on behalf of governments. His job description might include weaponizing fact-checking to discredit critical voices, deploying false information to smear and delegitimize sovereign governments, and bribing local journalists to push adversarial narratives, as the Center for Information Resilience attempted to do with over 20 African journalists in 2025. But the one thing he contractually cannot deliver is actual journalism or objective truth. CNN's open source investigator, who used satellite images to proclaim the existence of mass graves right where I was standing, was actually just a Western intelligence operative. But the disinformation didn't just fly in from London, it also came from next door. Throughout the period in question, it was impossible to monitor events in Tanzania without running into what was clearly a sponsored social media disinformation campaign being orchestrated through a network of Kenyan accounts. While Tanzanian cities burned and the internet shut down made information from ground zero difficult to confirm, Kenyan social media spaces exploded with fake news. Pushed initially by Kenyan Twitter users, multiple claims like this one, apparently Tanzanians storming Julius Nyerere International Airport to stop senior government officials from fleeing the country, began doing the rounds. These viral claims soon got picked up and amplified far beyond their initial target audience. In reality, that video, which was actually from 2021, showed Tanzanian mourners breaking past barricades at Julius Nyerere International Airport to catch a final glimpse of former President John Magufuli's body before it was flown to Dodoma. Another video purported to show a breakdown of law and order in Dodoma, but upon careful inspection, a commercial signboard in the background clearly shows a phone number with the country code 243, which belongs to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tanzania's country code is 255. While Kenyan accounts pushed false narratives online, former Kenyan Justice Minister and active politician Martha Karua made a politically incendiary attempt to attend Tundu Lissu's trial hearing in Tanzania, as did former Kenyan Chief Justice Willy Mutunga, alongside Kenyan activists Hussein Khalid and Hanifa Adam. All four were promptly deported by the Tanzanian government, with a warning specifically targeted at Kenyan civic actors to stop trying to interfere in Tanzania's sovereign affairs. To add an extra layer of complexity to this already strained situation, on November 18, Charles Onkuri Ongeta, a dual Kenyan-US national who worked for the US Army, was arrested while attempting to cross a land border into Tanzania with 4 hand grenades.
We don't want to accuse our neighbors, but some of our neighbors were highly celebrating as if they are getting something out of it. So we keep asking ourselves, what is it? Is it just a normal thing or an economic war?
The social media campaign against Tanzania had to have a source. An analysis of a number of online fake news posts, including this one, purportedly a quote from Rwandan President Paul Kagame, revealed a trail of breadcrumbs that led directly to a Kenyan mastermind. The professional level graphic editing and meticulous attention to detail, including cloning the Facebook identity of a popular US TV station, showed that this wasn't some bored teenager in Naivasha doing it for the giggles. This was a paid disinformation campaign, and a little open source sleuthing revealed the face behind it: a young Kenyan entrepreneur called Zephaniah Captain. Our investigation identified his social media agency cum all-in-one business entity called Mustard Cash Limited as the traceable epicenter of an epidemic of professionally designed viral fake news posts designed to be as shareable as they were believable. Using the address on his own website, we got on a flight to Nairobi to see if we could confront him. We tracked down the address in Nairobi's Central Business District, and we ended up here, Bima House. The offices of Mustard Cash Limited do not exist. What does exist here is Kenya's budget office and multiple other revenue-focused government entities. It's a state-owned building, so a dead end. Or perhaps the highest possible confirmation of Deodatus Balile's suspicion that the Kenyan involvement in the events leading up to and immediately after October 29 did in fact have state backing. And then there was the prize. As the crisis subsided, a deal was brokered. The US government, which had been threatening sanctions, pivoted to facilitation. A $42 billion LNG development deal involving ExxonMobil, which had been on the back burner since 2023, leading to hints about frustration from the Americans, suddenly went to the front burner as soon as the acting US ambassador visited President Hassan shortly after her inauguration and made noises about a reset. The strong-arm diplomacy had worked. Accept the terms we offer on extraction deals, or face the consequences of a destroyed reputation, up to and including diplomatic and trade sanctions.
Imagine these activists. They are pushing these messages through the social media to the youth in our country and the other countries that they are living posh life. They are driving 4-wheel cars and they are living in 5-star hotels. Really footing their for what interest? How are they going to pay him or her back? Because if someone pays you, it should be an remuneration, a reward for your work. So for them who are pushing this hate speech to our countries, for people to demonstrate, to cause chaos, how are they going to be paid back? This question they should be telling it. Those who are funding the activists, how are they going to recover their money? I think this is a very pertinent question they should answer. Unless they know, and actually looking at what is happening in countries like Somalia, countries like South Sudan, Sudan itself, some Western countries, is that these guys have got ammunition factories. And they know once the violence erupts, they will sell ammunition. Be it on the side of the government, because the government would like to protect its people, and the insurgents would like to squeeze the government, so they will be giving ammunition to the insurgency if it reaches that stage, and the government will be buying weapons to protect the citizens. So for them, they are creating a route for the next business, which will yield a huge profit than what they are investing through the activists. I think this is not fair. These guys are forcing down our throats violence so that they can make profit out of their things. But they know for sure that one day also our people will start to be killing each other. And they can't kill themselves or each other with the stones. They will buy weapons. And they are the ones who are producing weapons. And these weapons will be used against each other. For them, they will be making profit at the expense of our lives. I think Africa, it has come a stage where we should know and understand that these guys are not here to help us.
This has been a very illuminating conversation. The last question is a very specific one about the role. So some background to this question. Maria Sarungi and I used to be friends once upon a time. This issue was actually what drove the wedge between us. One day specifically, when I saw a tweet that she put up in the middle of this issue, and she was trying to drive, in my opinion, ethnic tension, because she made a mention about how the president, who is supposedly from Zanzibar is trying to take over Tanzania. I've lived through this kind of thing before, where ethnic tensions are used to introduce problems where they didn't exist before. To what extent do you think, maybe as a result of this last election or just in general, that Tanzania is exposed to this kind of problem, ethnic issues?
Actually, we have to heal as a country. As a nation, we have to heal, we have to rebuild. Because this thing damaged our unity. Not just ethnicity, even religion. That agenda was also pushed around. They managed to penetrate in some of the religious organizations.
They did.
Yeah, they managed to penetrate, so that some religions branches looked like they were also campaigning against the president, in line with that kind of poor thinking that maybe she's a woman, she's a Zanzibari, a Muslim, so it's our turn. And I thought maybe some of them thought a woman president would not be as strong as a man president. But they forgot that presidents is an institution, not an individual. So the way I'm looking at it, yes, they tried to use ethnicity, they tried to use religion, but the lucky part is Tanzanians, we have grown up. Mwalimu Nyerere and Sheikh Abedi Amani Karume built this nation under strong foundations. And actually, if you start mentioning religion, you start mentioning ethnicity, you start mentioning originality, someone looks at you like, is this a little Tanzanian? So this kind of agenda, which was started by the Sarungis and others, it shook some of the foundations. So we need to heal. We have to have the national player. We'll have to look at sending back our kids to the national service in classes. Thanks God that the school curriculum has been changed, where now our boys and girls are taught about the history of Tanzania from those early days as a special subject. In Kiswahili, they are taught about the history of Tanzania, to know where we came from, what we passed through, where we are, and what is our destination as Padira 2050. We have got the national vision, which is aimed at taking Tanzanians by 2050 to have a country of 1 trillion USD economy. That's the ambition of our country. So we need this kind of vision to be shared by the young generation so that they can participate. We don't want anyone to take us astray as a country.
The October 29 crisis in Tanzania was real. People were hurt. Property was destroyed. Lives were altered, sometimes irretrievably. Ordinary people are always the biggest victims when external entities meddle violently in the internal political affairs of what is meant to be a sovereign state. But as is so often the case, the story that was sold to the world was a flattened, two-dimensional parody of what actually happened. A funhouse mirror reflection of the truth, distorted by multiple external forces, including foreign intelligence operations, regional economic competition, and simple old greed. Long before I arrived in Tanzania, Deodatus Balile and the eyewitnesses on the ground already knew the truth. This was a premeditated attack by an entity that has long declared war on Tanzania, a successful proof of concept demonstrating that even in highly regulated African spaces, the giant nation-breaking machine wielded by Western capital can still have its way. As my plane left Nairobi, I was aware that public exposure alone cannot stop this machine. It is still running, and it will take a lot of stopping. The only ray of hope we have is that if enough Africans can become familiar with this machine and how it works, the odds may just even out in our favor. In an era where the old order is shifting and naked colonialism is now openly celebrated,
un sujet qui est très politiquement incorrect, c'est-à-dire quelque part, pardonnez-moi, mais recoloniser d'une certaine façon ces pays-là, ne serait-ce qu'économiquement parlant.
Côté aussi, peut-être maintenant, notre ambassadeur et notre contingent n'étant plus otages au Niger, en quelque sorte, dans cette position de Fort Alamo, nous aurons peut-être plus de latitude pour monter des opérations de déstabilisation, cette fois-ci plus clandestines.
But the Kurds disappointed us. The Kurds take. We sent some guns with ammunition, and they were supposed to be delivered, but they kept it. I said they're going to keep it, but what do I know?
This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization.
Africa's ability to understand and see through geopolitical productions like October 29 in Tanzania is now a matter of basic survival.